What's up, Ragin Nation? How y'all doing? This is Alex, you watching the Ragin Ronin review. Now in this video, I want to take the time to talk about something that some of you guys may have been curious about, and that is, how do I rate movies? Or in other words, how do I score movies out of 10? Now, if you've been subscribed to this channel, you will know that I have reviewed over 100 films, and each one of these films have been given a score out of 10. You've probably been wondering, how do I come up with that number? Well, I'm going to tell you how in this video. There are times when I've given a movie a score of 5 out of 10, sometimes I give it an 8 out of 10, and sometimes I give it an 8.75 or a 6.25 out of 10. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I come up with that 0.25 or 0.75? Well, let me explain. First of all, reviewing a movie and scoring a movie is two completely different things. Scoring a movie out of 10 is what should immediately follow after your review of the film. This is a turning point for a lot of people who watch a lot of movie reviews. Because after all what's said and done in your review, they need to know what is the overall score. And that can determine whether or not they decide to spend their money on that movie. Sometimes people just skip the review and they're just looking for that score out of 10. So that's why it's very important that you give it a score. Now, I use several different scoring systems, but there's really only one that I use the most. But before I get into that, I want to tell you about a scoring system that the general public normally uses. You might all use this, and that is the random rating system. This is where you just throw out a random number out of 10. For example, if I asked you, can you give me a score out of 10 for the movie 300? And you will go, I give it 7 out of 10. You see what I did there? I didn't take really any time to think about that. I just came out with a random number that I thought was appropriate for rating the movie 300. Now, this is what the general public would have used because they have nothing to really compare it to if they don't watch a lot of films. And that's why I used a method called the Comparative Scoring system. And that is when you compare the movie with something else that you've seen recently, because I watch a lot of movies. So the way to do this is that I found a movie that is a 5 out of 10 and also a movie that is a 10 out of 10. Now, I don't have a whole lot of movies that I rate as a 10 out of 10, so therefore I go with maybe a 9 out of 10. And then after that, you have your basis on what you can compare it to. So for example, I rated Resident Evil Retribution a 5 out of 10, and then I rated The Hunger Games a 9 out of 10. Now let's pick a movie that I've watched recently. So that would be The Last Stand. Now I'll start doing the comparison. Is it better than Resident Evil Retribution? Yes, it is. Is it as good as The Hunger Games? No, it's not. So now we have determined that it is a score between 5 out of 10 and 9 out of 10. So once you've narrowed it down and compared it to other movies that you've seen recently, you will have a better way of finding a score out of 10 for your movie. Let me give you another example. I rated The Bourne Legacy as a 6.75 out of 10. Now, why would it be 6.75? Let's look at other movies that I've rated that have a closer score to that. For example, the Total Recall Reboot and Premium Rush. I gave a Premium Rush a 7 out of 10. I gave the Total Recall Reboot a 6.5 out of 10. Now I ask myself, is it better than the Total Recall Remake? Yes, it is. Is it as good as or better than Premium Rush? No, it isn't. So therefore, it'd be somewhere in the middle, and that is 6.75 out of 10. You see what I did there? I compared it with other movies. And this is the most common method that I use because I watch a lot of movies. And that is the comparative scoring system. Now, the next method that I use for scoring movies is the cumulative scoring system. Now, this scoring system is actually really simple to do. And all you do is that you start off with a score out of 0 and then you work your way upwards. For example, does the movie have good acting? Yes, it does. +1. So you're at 1 now. Did it have a good story? Yes, it did. It had a fantastic story. Let's give that 2 additional points. So you're at 3 now. Did it have really well-written characters? Yes, as a matter of fact, all the characters were very well written. Let's give it another score of 2. Did the movie have a very good script? Yes, it did. Now that's another +1. Now you're up to 6 out of 10. That's the cumulative scoring system because you're adding more and more to it. But the thing with the cumulative scoring system is that you do not deduct points. Because if you're starting at 0 and then you start talking about the negative things about it, then it might have a negative score out of 10. And that doesn't quite work. However, on the other hand, another way to use the cumulative scoring system is starting off at 5 out of 10. And that way you can go up and down. So if you're starting at 5 out of 10, if it had good acting, +1. However, if it had bad acting, then -1. So you're bringing it down to 4. So it can go up and down. So let's say that it was a 4 out of 10. Did it have really good action? Yes, it did. Let's give it 2 additional points. So that would be a 6 out of 10. But it also had really bad dialogue. So let's give it a -1 for that. So it goes back to 5 out of 10. You see what I'm saying there? So that's the cumulative scoring system, but starting at 5. Now, you're probably thinking, if you can start at 5 and you can start at 0, then you could probably start at 10 and work your way downwards. That doesn't quite work out the same way. In fact, you probably wouldn't do that at all. It's not quite logical because that means you're just talking about all the bad things about the movie. It doesn't work out that way. So you would either start off at 0 and then you'd consider all the good things about the movie, or you would start off at 5 and you'd consider all the good and bad things about the movie. But you wouldn't start off at 10 and work your way downwards. It doesn't make any sense. So that's the cumulative scoring system. Now we're going to start getting into specifics, and that's the genre-based scoring system. So for example, if you're watching a comedy, then you'd rate your movie out of 10 based on other comedies, and most specifically, did the movie make you laugh? Was it well-written dialogue? Was it clever comedy? Was it crude comedy? You know, all these little things. Or was it comedy that wasn't very smart and uninspired? So all these little things will affect your scoring of the movie. Or for example, if you're getting more specific, let's say you're rating a martial arts film. Did it have really good action? Did it have shaky camera work? How was the choreography and stunt work? All these little things are essential and need to be considered if you're going to do genre-based scoring. Another example would be horror films. Did it scare you? Was it exciting? Did it come with a lot of thrills? Was it predictable? Did the hot cheerleader girl die? Once again, all these little things need to be considered based on the fact that you're scoring a film in the horror genre. So this is genre-based scoring. Another specific scoring system that I use is called foundation rating. And this is a scoring system for movies that are based off of something. It has a foundation that it is based off of. For example, sequels, prequels, remakes, reboots, adaptations of comic books, adaptations of novels. All these movies that are sequels, reboots, remakes, and prequels, and all that are based off a foundation. So you would always be comparing this movie based on that original film. So for example, Star Wars. So if you're rating the Star Wars prequels, you would always be giving it a score out of 10 based on the original Star Wars film that came out in 1977. So if you gave Star Wars A New Hope a 10 out of 10, then you know what to give a score out of 10 for Star Wars Attack of the Clones. Or if you're rating The Amazing Spider-Man, which is the Spider-Man reboot, you'd be comparing it to Spider-Man 1, directed by Sam Raimi. Or another example is if you're rating a movie that's based off a book, for example, The Hunger Games, you'd be asking yourself, is it faithful to the book? Or did they leave out key parts or key scenes that were essential in the novel? All these little things need to be considered. And this is what you call foundation rating, because you're rating the movie based off of the original foundation. And finally, the last rating system that I use, which I don't use anymore, is basically a rating based on entertainment value. So the entertainment value rating system. And you give this movie a score out of 10 based on if the movie entertained you. And this is one of the simplest ways to rate a movie out of 10 because the general movie going public really just goes to the movies to be entertained. If you give the movie a 1 out of 10, then you obviously weren't very entertained. But there's a lot of people that give movies a 10 out of 10 just based on the fact that they had a really fun time at the films. I don't use this rating system anymore because I like to look at characters and story and dialogue and direction and visual effects and all those kind of things. So the entertainment value rating system doesn't work for me. But if you're really not a movie buff like I am, and you're not hardcore like I am, but you just go to the movies just looking for, you know, a fun Friday night, then use the entertainment value rating system. It's the easiest way and it won't give you a headache on figuring out what score to give the movie. When people use this rating system, you'll find that they give the 10 out of 10 score a lot. And that is exactly why I don't use this rating system anymore, but it works for other people. In fact, a lot of people. Anyways, that's all I gotta say in this video. Why don't you guys let me know in the comment section below which rating system you like to use. Let me just review them all for you. There's the random rating system. There's comparative scoring. There's cumulative scoring. There's genre-based scoring. There's also the foundation rating system. And then finally, there's scoring based on entertainment value. Which one do you use most of the time? Let me know in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed this video or you found this video to be helpful, hit that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, like me on Facebook, The Ragin Nation, and also follow me on Twitter at Ragin Nation. My name is Alex Yu, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace. Some characters that are mechanical and there's no life in them, but he brought them to life. Sean Levy did such a great job with this film, and he made it totally action-packed, and I felt that